Good morning, folks. Welcome to my ad hoc ranking uh, video program on the internet. And I got 2 points, very important points to make today. One is this. There is a fog of deception being blown over the entire world surrounding Ukraine and who is who and what is doing and so on and so forth. Something just happened a few days ago, and that prompted me and warranted me to make a few comments. One is we have this back and forth between Pustalenin and Boris or Boris Johnson, like Boris Yeltsin. And that is due, and we heard like Pustalenin's henchmen, those lizard eye cabal of Moscow, threaten Lithuania as well. I assure you folks, these threats are empty. Right now, everybody in the world know what Russia is. And the myth is shattered, let's put it this way. And there are plenty of so much myth in this world about certain countries and regimes like that of China and so on. But the subject is this. Pustalenin threatened England with annihilation and burning and, sinking, the whole island into the ocean and so on, because they and others blockaded that enclave, Kaliningrad. Well, first of all, let me make a point that this is not Russia, this is Germany. Kaliningrad, that's not its name. That enclave, that piece of land, that is invaded and occupied by Russia. It's no different from Crimea, it's no different from anywhere else. That is owned and titled by Germany for thousands of years. The occupation of Russia of that enclave is temporary, and sooner or later it will be removed, and that enclave will come back, join, and will be reclaimed by Germany again. I don't know if Lithuania has any part of it or anything like that, but we'll see. That's Germany. That in my heart and in my soul, that's all I will declare, that's all I will accept, that's all I will understand, that part of the world is Germany, that what is called Kaliningrad. But that's not the point. The point here is this. The West keeps giving you all kind of innuendos and deception and lies and deceit and spinning you in a spin zone, throwing you in a spin zone that is spinning, that the disk of that spin zone is as big as a galaxy, right? And it's spinning in the speed of light. Ask yourself, folks, for those who have analytical minds, everybody does have analytical minds, but those who are initiated, those who can read, and have some investigative background and so on, what will that do to Russia? Kaliningrad, that little enclave. Is it going to choke to Russia to death? Is it going to stop Russia doing as if it is the only outlet of Russia into the world? It just doesn't make sense, folks. Blockading that enclave just doesn't make sense. Is it a gesture? Possible. I doubt it. Folks, this is a point, this is a farce, this is a theatrical act, a spin zone to deceive the world, especially those Europeans, that USA, that NATO, that EU are in fact fighting against Russia and on the side of Ukraine. Believe me, folks, this is a point of deception. It's agreed upon with the Pustalenin in order to deceive you. Whether it is Germany or Britain or France or EU or NATO or USA or whoever it is that are claiming to support Ukraine are doing everything but supporting Ukraine, and they're doing everything in their disposal. Acts, deception, fog of deception. They're like blowing fog of deceptions all over the world, especially Europe. to appear to you and me, we simple people, right, as if they are really supporting Ukraine when they're really not, folks. Right now, the one thing that really they can do to support Ukraine is provide weapons, real weapons for Ukraine, and that's they're not doing. You hear in the news about like artillery being supplied to Ukraine, Bushmasters by Australia, I don't know what, one or two, and Bushmaster is a synonym for kangaroos, right? So anyways, you see what I'm talking about here? Because if Ukraine has enough weapons to match that of Russia, they would have defeated Russia a long time ago. Folks, people, average citizen like myself, around Europe, around the world, know this, that the entire hegemony and establishment in the West and in the East are in fact supporting Russia. They are standing by, looking on, shocked and paralyzed by the fact that Russia faltered and was defeated in Ukraine. They cannot ingest that because to them that's the Israeli thing, you know. Israel is steering this whole big ship, right? You know, that is moving about with all these evil, heralding the evil in the West, right? You know, they did take over in Europe. That's why the establishments are balking at helping Ukraine and shocked at helping Ukraine, and they're helping Russia. It was called the European Spring. So the Arab Spring and European Spring in the last century was really basically the Israeli Spring, meaning the direct rule, not indirect rule, but direct rule by Israel over these people. Zion, let's put it this way, Zion, in which Zion has established its office in 1948 in modern-day Palestine, or in Palestine. So that said, don't be deceived. People, don't be deceived by all that rhetoric back and forth and so on and so forth. No. Don't be deceived by all the deception and the lies and deceit and the fog of deception and that is being spewed out by the media, by politicians, by so on and so forth. They visit Kiev, you know, like when they visit Kiev in Ukraine, they may try to sound like they're supporting Ukraine by having presence in Ukraine, you know, like presidents coming to Ukraine, right? No, folks. This is for two things: one, deception; two, trying to pressure Ukraine into conceding to Russia, which is defeated, right? They're trying to raise Russia from the ashes right now. That's what Israel is trying to do: is raise Russia from the ashes. That's all they're trying to do now. That's why even their big man, Kissinger, right? You know, he said they must cede territory. He would not have said that before the war. Before the war, if he would speak his mind, he would tell you they will take over Europe. But afterwards, cede territory. Why? Because he acknowledges that he just discovered, and all of a sudden, that Russia's military, as a state, as a military, is really nothing, right? Is an inflated big balloon that was basically ruptured and pricked by a pin, and then now it's like deflating and flying around, and it's going to eventually fall onto Earth like a very small rumpled or crumpled handful of plastic. That's all there's to it, folks. That's all there's to it. After 4 months of assault on Ukraine, you average citizen like myself should really realize, with all that's happening, should really realize that this was a comprehensive operation on historic level by Zion into Western Europe. They didn't just take over in the European Spring in the last century, World War I and World War II take over of Zion, direct rule. But there is a second. This is a second stage in which they now like purge societies and so on and so forth, because they want to make sure that if there's any failure that happened in Afghanistan, that nobody is going to have the chance of freedom and recovering their national identity or religious identity or historic identity or social identity or heritage identity. They're coming there into Eurofox to remove all that, basic and simple, or simple and basic. You guys now, Ukraine is a chance for you. With whatever little you can do, you can defeat those and, like reverse that wave, that movement. They're not coming there, I can tell you that. But not if you're sitting around watching, like a military parade, you're sitting around the sidewalks in your countries, watching those Russian hordes, those Mongol hordes, move into your countries as if you're watching a military parade. Guess what? It's not going to happen. I mean, no matter what, it eventually come to haunt you if you have such a stand, such a position on the events and so on. You can't wait for the establishments in your country, whether it's Germany or Scandinavia or France or Italy or anywhere else, to stifle you and make you an easy prey for those hordes that are moving west. Because once they move west, I promise you this, folks, those Germanics and Scandinavians will suffer the mother of all blood purges. And on history level, and once they're done, those Pustalenin lizard eye cabal of Moscow, once they're done in Europe, Europe will have completely changed and they will never recover again. That's their plan, folks. Nothing more, nothing less. And Europe will become pretty much a useless place, just like the Middle East became after what? It's been like this for a long time. After, the Muslim world, whether it is France, Spain, Italy, or Arab countries, or in the East and here and there, it was a learning center. It was a advanced society. They were near utopia, right? And look at them now. And there's no end in sight, right? You may think, and again, I repeated this before, you may think that these are overactive imaginations and, I'm exaggerating things and so on. But you found out, before this war started, I told you this was a comprehensive operation to take over Europe. And now you, after 4 months of Russia's collapse and failure, you found out that's the case, right? I mean, they are saying that themselves now, confirming what I had predicted in the past, that this is a comprehensive operation, that this has come to take over Europe. That is that leg of the tripod of Israel, which is Russia and China and Iran, right? And it's no different from Iran taking over the Middle East. Well, they never took over, right? I mean, superficially speaking, yes, but look at what's happening in the Middle East, right? It's never recovered. It's at wars, whether it's Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan or Yemen or Libya or Somalia. It's always at war, man. I mean, it's like they intend not to let it recover from that state and even descend further into chaos and into fighting and into divisions and into destruction and so on and so forth. That's what it is, folks. That's what's coming your way. If you don't value your life, you don't value your heritage, you don't value your identity, you don't value anything else like that comes through thousands of years of you existing there, and I don't know what, So remember, folks, all that you hear about Kaliningrad, that German enclave, I don't know, have its own name, not Kaliningrad, or it's all deception. The West is completely supporting Russia and completely against Ukraine. They're doing everything that is possible at their disposal and at their disposal to deceive you, but not the one thing that really shows they're in support of Ukraine and against Russia, and that is providing weapons to Ukraine. Ukrainian leadership, whether it's Poroshenko or this guy or I don't know, is guilty as well. Ukraine is an industrial country. Ukraine does manufacture their own weapons, and what did they do after 2014? No, really nothing, really, as if they were preparing for this. But that's not our subject now. Remember, if there are sanctions against Russia, true sanctions against Russia, and there are no sanctions against Russia, all that is bullshit, folks. All that is fog of deception, right? Put out by that unseen, behind the scene, the commander at the helm of that silhouette of that gigantic evil ship in the ocean called, it's Israel, right? they're putting out all kind of fog of deception, and but at the same time supporting Russia. If there are sanctions against Russia, Russia would have collapsed, believe me. If there are sanctions and de-swifting against Russia, the ruble will be like, I don't know, 100,000 rubles per dollar. You can guarantee that. If there's not support from the outside, and especially from like United States, ECB, Feds, whoever it is, stock markets, cryptocurrencies, Chinese, Japan, of course, right? And Gulf Arab countries by way of restricting or downsizing their production, reducing their production of oil in order to allow Russia to sell more with higher prices. Believe me, folks, Russia would have collapsed, and their ruble, Fred and Wilma's ruble, right? Ruble, right? Would have collapsed, basic and simple. So don't buy all that bullshit, folks. Don't buy all that, all these lies, all these tricks, all these. They're trying to finagle their way out of it. They come to Kiev and dance around. Second, the promise of EU membership is a lie, folks. This is only a promise, and they will never. I advise you not to join EU because they will impose policy on you, and that is appeasing Russia. I advise you folks not to join NATO. Why? Because Pustalenin just threatened a member of NATO, which is Lithuania, right? Not one NATO member said anything about that, or objected, or threatened back, or showed support for Lithuania. The only one who supported Lithuania and said something about it is the foreign minister of Ukraine. Do you remember Biden in Poland? He will defend every inch of NATO. No, why didn't he say something about that? No, folks, people, it's all a lie. If Ukrainian join NATO or EU, the only thing that will happen is they will impose policy on you now. They will commandeer your economy and your finances, put debts on you forever, and forward all the debt that they put on your country to the stock market rabbis, and they will force you to appease Pustalenin. That's all they will do, folks. That is all they will do, and they're in total agreement and on the same page and in the same boat with Pustalenin, right? That is an icon of Moscow. All these establishments in the West. They said, oh, they de-swifted like the biggest bank in Russia. Well, how about the other banks? So guess what? If you plug the door, well, there's always the window that's open, right? Just think about it. I mean, it doesn't make sense. You either de-swift the whole thing or not de-swift. And if you do, then you have to make good on it, right? I forgot her name, that EU woman, representative or president, I don't know. She reminded the Ukrainians that they are dying in their aspiration and the representation of the European Union, and they in turn, European Union, should entertain them. What she's trying to say there was very simple. Is if you stop the war, appease Russia, they will. That's what she's saying. They will, allow you into the European Union. That's a lie, folks. That's only a promise. You do that. Next thing they will say, it's going to take a few years and blah 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 blah. What happens in Ukraine, folks? What happened? That Russia invasion was in plan for decades and was agreed upon by the Western, and Israel is basically commanding the whole situation, and they wanted to sweep that Europe to no return. EU citizens, the average one, just like I am, I'm a US citizen, used to be a Syrian citizen, an Arab citizen, right? Some 42 years ago, still is, I think, yeah. You need to reconsider your situation as an individual. Forget the establishments. Try to pressure them into doing something that they want to. These are appeasing Pustalenin day and night. And not just that, they are helping Pustalenin day and night against Ukraine. including those in the US. So that's what this is, this Kaliningrad. Right now, folks, they say, the media outlets and even the Ukrainian government in Kiev is also complicit on this. That they're sending you like long-range weapons and so on. Maybe one or two, just to cover up their tracks and to trying to deceive you and thwart your attention and blind your eyes and blindfold you from the facts. They're not sending anything, folks. They're not sending anything. And if they do, it's one or two. Here's the deal, folks. In the last century, the communist revolution, which is really a Zionist movement, similar to Nazism, similar to Mongol invasion of the Muslim world in the last century, about 1,000 years ago, murdered hundreds of millions, folks. They destroyed life as we know it. I mean, how some people survived, I don't know. I mean, the horror that was committed in the last century and so on. Now, some of you, or the majority of you in Europe, Western Europe, or even Russia, when the Russian Revolution started, they weren't aware of what's going to happen. Some of them joined, some of them didn't join. They're all Masonics and so on. And they were the first one to be murdered. And a few years later, after the dust was settled and it became very obvious, the predator was firmly in the seat of power of Russia and then the Soviet Union and so on. That what people didn't know before the revolution was this is going to be such an inclusive, such a comprehensive, such a permanent predation, such as, the horror that ensued, right? Same thing of you guys in Europe. You didn't think this is going to come your way, right? Before World War II, you probably slept, died, and enjoyed your drinks in the bars and families and summer resorts in the mountains and Bavaria and here and there. But what you didn't know, and when things began to erupt, and commotions, and, the East, those hordes from the East began to move in, and upheaval in societies and so on, you didn't think it was going to be that bad. When did you know it was going to be that bad? After World War I, right? After World War I, you knew how bad things are, and that you knew that you didn't know that or didn't think that before the war, right? All established monarchies were removed, and I don't want to say it, but millions and millions were killed. But then you thought this was it, right? You settled down again. Went back lethargic, kicked back and sat back and, tried to enjoy life and so on. And when World War II started, you didn't know it was going to be that bad either, right? But then it turns out to be like mother of all blood purchase, right? Hundreds of millions died in the last century. Same thing, the Muslims. The Muslims arrived at Utopia 1,000 years ago, 900 years ago. And when those Mongols moved from the east, Rabbi Genghis Khan and his grandpap, Rabbi Hulagu. Why am I saying rabbis? Oh, I know, folks. People didn't think it was going to be that bad. No. They thought, it's like it happened, and they were living the life of learning, society, luxuries, beautiful things, and. But when those Mongols, and they didn't even have armies, right? They were literally their military at that point in the Muslim world, whether it's Khawarizm or Arabs or whoever it is, right? They didn't think a major war was going to erupt again, or they needed armies and so on and so forth. And there were some fifth column within, they called Shiites, right? Which propagated and prepared the land, for the Hamas of the Hulagus, right? People didn't think it was going to be this way. Back then, they murdered no less than, in the Muslim world alone, they murdered no less than 4 million people. And those Hulagus and those Genghis Khan, and still do until now, their offsprings, the Stalin and Lenin, right? and now Pustalenin, the continuation, and the Netanyahus for that matter, and others too. They have this aversion to learning. If they see a place learning and rising up and becoming educated and refined and have principles and ideals and so on, something kills them on the inside, folks, and they begin systematic destruction. They are looking for you and I, mankind, to be animalized. Period. That's all they're looking for. And I don't need to prove that to you. Look at history. Look at the history of the last century, of the 1,000 years ago, and here and there. And I'm not the only one who knows that. And it's a duty of your educated class in Europe to wake you up to such fact of what's coming your way. That's all I can say, folks. So don't ever believe that the establishments in Western Europe or America or anywhere else have changed their mind and they're supporting Ukraine and sanctioning Russia. No, it's really the other way around. Gulf countries, Arab Gulf countries are helping Pustalenin. America is, Western Europe is, and China, of course, and Japan, and so on. They are all supporting Pustalenin. Believe me, if they weren't supporting Pustalenin, that ruble will have collapsed to be like, by now, probably 100,000 for $1. In fact, the whole country would have collapsed. And I'm seeing something like this on the horizon anyway. All this support for Russia is not going to do much. All right, that's the first point. So that was the political point. Now going to the economic point. Folks, the world financial system and economic system is in shambles. It's falling into a precipice, the bottomless pit, like in the Bible, right? And now they're trying to convince you, the individual, average individual, just like myself, and I hear that day and night and time and again. They pin it down on evil and remember the Pope? Oh, the stranger in our midst, and prophecy and end of times and politics, and they put all kind of sophisticated, colorful graphs for you, ups and downs, and economy, and they take you into a forest of deception, right, and put you in a maze like the catacomb of Paris, and then you would think that this is something to do with evil and 666 and whatnot and blah blah. What's happening in the world? The financial woes of the world, the economic world of the woes of the world are very simple, folks. Those people, the stock market rabbis, have been stealing trillions on daily basis siphoning off out of the world financial system, which eventually weakened the structure of the financial structure and the economy of the world, that it can no longer stand on its own, right? And they own the White House, they own the Senate, they own the Supreme Court, they own the Congress, and guess what? They're doing that every day, and nobody, they won't even say anything about it. And what's happening is there is a frenzy of theft, right? Of thieving and stealing, and it's morbid, it's dark, that they can't even stop, right? Even though, I mean, I drive around and I see people are not doing good. I myself will not contribute or donate or accept or give $1 or acknowledge $1 for those stock market people or investors or whoever it is, or even if the government is giving it to them, I will not concede one. I will not acknowledge one. Never did in the past, never do now, never will in the future. Period. I'm speaking for myself. I hope you speak the same thing for yourself as well. But that's what's going on, folks. When, like now, there's something called super billionaire. Folks, there are entire countries who don't have billions. How does someone become super billionaire, right? And that's someone, by way of investment or hedge funds or so and so on and so forth. And how much is enough, folks? I mean, how much is enough, really? I mean, you take someone who works by hedge fund, and then the back end political system forces a country, and even the polity of the country will be working with them. They force them to borrow money that they don't need. And then this hedge fund now starts like sucking up the blood of a country, right? And they give a little bit in the background to whom? Guess what? They give it to that regimen, that polity that rules that country. Same thing happens in the US during Trump and Obama and so on and so forth. These people forced the country to shell out trillions and gave it to hedge funds and stock market and Teslas and whatnot, all those bullshit rickshaws that are made that run on batteries, right? You hardly see any one of them. And they take their cut in the background. They don't give a shit. Trump and whoever it is, they shook down the Gulf Arab countries for billions. How do you make billions, folks? It's just mind-boggling. It's paralyzing when you think about it. Like, millionaire now is frowned upon. No, it's not a big deal. The competition on a luxury, in a luxury or expensive restaurant in New York now, between those weirdos, those hunchmen, is not millions. They start bragging about billions, right? When people are losing their savings and they're finding it impossible to find a job, Especially you Masonics, they promise you all kind of things. And guess what? You're the first victim, right? You're the one who enabled them. And now they're riding on you, and now they're directing, your attention, deflecting and pointing your attention toward the wrong target. Oh, look, evil. Oh, look, stranger in our midst. Oh, look, 666. Oh, look, great planet Earth. Oh, look, it's prophecy in the Bible. Oh, look, evil. Oh, God. Oh, whoever it is. When it's really them who's destroying the world, right? That's it. Very same people who are feeding you these misconceptions, these bad notions. These are, things. I am out of it, folks. I will not pay 1 penny, not $1, not now, not in the past, not in the future. Period. It's that simple, folks. Never did, actually. I never said anything to acknowledge it, okay? Nor accepted it. I always spoke against it. Not just that, these guys have the audacity to print out billions and billions, hundreds of billions, probably trillions, and give it to something called Bitcoin of Israel. Nobody uses. And then you look at Bitcoin and those cryptocurrencies, the mother of all evils, right? You would see that there's some whoever man and so on, billionaires, right? Where did they get that money from? Nobody even invests in that shit that called shitcoin or Bitcoin. Because Obama and Trump and Bush and Clinton and whoever it is, on your account and that of the world, shell out money and give it to them. It's really numbers. Now let's put it this way. All these numbers that they've stolen, it's really not cash. And when push comes to shove, this money will be destroyed and they will lose it. And all that they accumulated will be shattered. That's not on the horizon. But not before they have destroyed the world. So don't folks, don't look at the wrong target. And not just that, they go manufacture and build those terrorist organizations, which are really Zionist, like Al-Qaeda, like what's their name, ISIS, like Sufis, like Muslim Brotherhoods, like Nazism, like communism, and so on. Oh man, man. Okay. So that's the financial point. And now know this, that if Russia was not supported 100% by the West, by Israel, they would have collapsed as a country. They would have suffered the same fate in Syria. If I got reports, very good, reliable reports, that Saudi, UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, and Oman provided full coverage, full financial support for Russia, both in their expedition in Syria and in Russia, so as to survive the assault on their own Arab people. They're not their people, folks. I've been in Saudi in the 90s, early 90s. And I lived there for like 2 years or so. The majority of the Saudi people, unlike this, how the propaganda and fog of deception goes, you may think the Saudis are rich. Folks, the majority of the Saudi original native Arabs there are poor people. They're very poor, folks. They live in like shabby towns, not shabby towns, like houses and streets and so on. Their neighborhoods are run down and so on, and they hardly make money. In fact, what the money they make is really very minuscule. That really takes care of their own expenses, and that's all. As a family, no different. But they're really poor. Where are these billions going? Of oil revenue of Iran, Russia, and the Arabian Peninsula, and where else? Believe me, it's going to the hands of those oligarchs and investors and royal families like the MBSs and so on. They become billionaires, right? All that revenue they're sucking it up. And when they're presidents, they go get like $2 billion, and the Mnuchin also shakes down Saudis. Like he goes there a number of times and he extracts few billions and so on. I want to tell you something about this MBS. He bought, supposedly I heard, he bought a painting by I don't know who called The Savior from Europe for $500 million, or $400 million, or $500 million. And the people of Saudi are poor people. Some of them actually are peddlers on the sidewalks. They spread things on the sidewalk to sell, sometimes food or so and so on. They're poor people, folks, and they're supposedly an oil country. And then he buys that photo, that painting, Savior. Why Savior? Oh, he's like the 23, the Jew, right? The new Messiah, Mashiach of the Jews. His Mashiach, right? I heard report, right? I read report that it is really a fake painting. It's not real. Second, not by supposedly the artist that painted that picture of the Savior. And that's not Jesus, folks. You may think it's Jesus, and that's not Jesus. But here's the deal. Suppose it was or it was done. 400, 500 million rands for what? And he brings it where? To Saudi. Now, here's the deal. In Saudi, it is so hot that if the air condition around that photo, around that picture, around that painting is knocked out or conked out, it'll be so hot, the painting will melt right there and then in 5 minutes, it'll just melt down because it is so hot. I know, I've been there. Almost around a year, right? So that's your economy, folks. That's the point about politics. That's the point about economy. You average citizen like myself, don't ever buy that shit about, or that bullshit about sanctions on Russia or blockading Kaliningrad or de-swifting. Oh, that's bullshit, folks. Don't buy the bullshit and the deception, fog of deception. Don't be blinded by the fog of deception about them helping Ukraine. They're not helping Ukraine. The fog of deception about that polity in Ukraine that is really working with Russia, right? And the West, right? They can't appear as such, right? Or the economy, they pin it down on evil. Your economic it's very known, folks. The problem of the economy in the world is really the stock market rabbis. That's it. Those bunch of murderers, mass murderers. I will repeat again, that root, that evil root, budded, the number of branches, trunk branches. Nazism, communism in the modern century, and others like Muslim Brotherhood, like the Iran's Islamic Revolution and all that stuff. Oh, they have all kind of names. All kind of names, folks. They really come out, spring out and branch out from the same root, that evil root. Have a nice day, my friends, and I really hope you average citizens like myself wake up your people, try to have some, become active in supporting Ukraine. They're not going to make it. That's definitely the case. That they have faltered. Your first indication is that hunched man, with a snout. What's his name? Kissinger. Demanding that Ukraine cede land to Russia, the very same Russia that said Hitler is Jewish, right? Of which he is, right? And before the war, if you asked him, he would be vehement on Russia taking over Europe, right? And he would laugh at you, scoff at you, and so on. But the fact that he's trying to help Russia buy some land, face saving, not humiliated, blah, 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 tells you that he knows now, he has deep convictions and true knowledge that Russia is really nothing. What they're trying to do now is raise Russia from the ashes. The myth of Russia has been shattered in Ukraine, folks, and that's that. Have a nice day, my friends. And they're trying to raise Russia from the ashes on the account of you Europeans and everybody else in the world. That evil is still there from the moment it was born by Lenin. That evil is still there from the moment in Western Europe, from the moment it was born by by the Hitler and his brothers and so on. And this evil here in the US is still here ever since Abraham Lincoln. Have a nice day, my friends. Good day.